Hello and welcome to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Mike Lawson, a supervising reporter at the Western Journal. I'm joined by my new lackey, Grant, joining the team. Both of these guys are actually interns right now. They're about to join us. We got Tara, she's going to be an assignment editor. Grant's going to be a reporter under me. I'm going to have him do all of the heavy lifting, all of the stuff that nobody else wants to do. And we've got some great news for you guys today. We're talking about, obviously, Afghanistan, biggest story going on right now, all of that chaos. We have Biden accidentally exposing intelligence officials. Surprise, surprise. Those gaffes were eventually going to lead to something pretty bad like this happening, I suppose.
Yeah, it's not quite as funny as getting lost in the
Not
bushes.
as funny as wandering aimlessly around the bushes of the White House lawn.
Yes.
And lastly, we'll be talking about Fauci saying no more liberty. You guys don't need liberty. He's just saying the quiet part out loud now. But first, Afghanistan. So the Biden administration, they're basically pulling all troops out of Afghanistan, and it's causing chaos. You know, Afghan citizens are freaking out. They do not want to be caught under this terrorist regime, and it's been so bad. You know, they've had some videos come out of the airport. What city is the airport?
Kabul.
The Kabul airport. And it's just flooded with people, and people are climbing on airplanes, trying to hang on to them as they get off into the air. And we actually have a video for you guys of that happening, of these Afghan citizens just trying to cling to this U.S. military plane as it's leaving Kabul. And we're going to play that now. Maybe, maybe not. I don't see it playing. So we can just talk about it, I suppose. So you literally see these guys, they're clinging to the wheels of this airplane as it's going down the landing strip, as it's getting ready to take off. And then later, as the plane is like really high up in the air, like thousands of feet above the ground, you actually can see some people falling off of the plane, crashing back to Earth. And, you know, a reporter from Iran who covers a lot of, terrorist issues over there, she basically tweeted out the video and she said, look, this is completely rational if you know about the types of things that these people would face under that regime. Biden has been universally criticized for his handling of this situation. Oh, and I think we got the video up now, so we're going to play that for you guys. Looks like that's ready. And maybe, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's one of those videos that you see like every 5 years or so, at least nowadays, where it's just your brain really can't even process what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible to watch that. Not incredible in a good way. Just it feels like unreal to see that happening. To see that just on a plane that is a U.S. Vehicle. You know, it's not like yes, it's happening in Afghanistan. It feels sort of removed from us in a way, but also it doesn't, because it's our plane. It's our people who are trying to get out of there, and Afghan people as well trying to get out of there. So it just feels so connected to America, and it doesn't feel like something that's happening on the other side of the world, because it feels like, this is us. Like, this is happening to us, and it's crazy to see that.
And literally, like, days ago, Biden was saying, oh no, the Afghanistan military, they can hold their own. They don't need us. This isn't going to happen. The Taliban's not going to gain control. And then just like that, just in an instant, the Taliban sweeps in, takes over everything. All of these, these women are going to be put back under oppression. All of these soldiers that fought for, the Afghan military, they're all getting executed in droves. What do you think of Biden's handling of this whole situation, Tara?
Well, I think it's just sloppy no matter how you look at it. We can go back and forth all day on whether or not we think that this was a good idea and if we should have withdrew our troops. However, you have to have a plan in place. I think that this was rushed, this was sloppy, and we left the country with absolutely no stability. We knew, like, for the past week that they had started taking over territories, that they had started taking over different cities. cities. So this isn't a surprise. We shouldn't be shocked to see this, especially when we saw this going south really quickly. It could have been like, whoa, we need to hit the brakes here. This isn't going the way we planned.
Yeah. And the other half of this equation, conservatism's pretty split down the middle about what kind of the reaction to this should be. Everyone agrees that Biden, in pulling things out the way they were, people weren't able to evacuate in time. We have Americans that are stuck over there right now. It's complete pandemonium. So everyone agrees that his handling of the situation was wrong. But there's a lot of people within conservatism that believe we shouldn't have been there in the first place. As soon as we pulled out, no matter what, the Taliban was going to take back over. Only since we were over there, now we've left a lot of weapons that we gave to the Afghan military. Now the Taliban has all of those resources to work with. What do you think of all of that, Grant?
Yeah, that to me is the biggest problem. I understand both sides. I'm not exactly sure which side I fall on as far as should we have been there, should we have not been there. That's a whole nother discussion. And honestly, I need to do more research myself before I can kind of decide what side I'm on of that. But what I do know, like you said, is that it was handled very poorly. And one of the biggest problems that you alluded to is that we have basically given weapons to the Taliban. I mean, they're using our weapons, and we've seen reports of Taliban soldiers who have been executing other Afghan citizens. Those videos haven't started to come out yet. I have a feeling that they will, unfortunately. We're going to start seeing those, which I'm sure will be graphic and not something that we want to see. But we've heard reports, and I don't think it's crazy to believe that that's true. And we've also heard reports that they're using our weapons. They're using our vehicles. And so what are the chances that our weapons are being used to kill innocent people? I mean, that's possibly what's happening right now. And even if not, we have armed a very radical group in the Taliban by just abandoning everything, leaving all of our stuff, and now we've made them capable of some things that they wouldn't have been able to do otherwise if it weren't for us. So that definitely is an issue to me.
And just to go off of that is we keep seeing that or having this sense that we needed to rush out and we are running out and having all of these things. And as Grant just told you, we had left a lot of our militaristic things and belongings over there just willy-nilly and gave them to these crazy people. And so when we're talking about leaving, there was no reason for us to leave. I was listening to Ben Shapiro today, and he made the following 2 points, is that the last time someone was killed in Afghanistan was in February 2020, so it's been over a year and a half. And then second off of that is that this doesn't even meet a percentage of what our new budget is. And so even with the one where it's like, oh, it's the $1 trillion budget, it's not even 0.05% of that. So I just think it's ridiculous to have this excuse being presented that we needed to get out of there right away, because I just don't see that.
Well, even the people who are against having our forces in there, which I understand, like I said, both sides, but even if you're against it, we had 3,500 soldiers in there. Now we have over 7,000 in there as we try to get them out.
Yeah.
So those people probably aren't happy either, because now we're just having to have more soldiers there. And I understand they're going to be out, we're going to be evacuating, and it's just a temporary thing. But like at this point right now, we have more soldiers, twice as many soldiers as we did a few days ago. So I don't understand how that's very productive either.
Obviously, this situation could have been handled a lot better, but, Biden bungled it. Biden tends to bungle a lot of things pretty bad, Tara, and that brings us to what you're bringing to the table today.
Yeah, so these guys talk about Marvel movies all day, and I have to listen to it, so I've learned quite a few things. But even if you're not a Marvel fan, you probably know that when you have a spy working for you, it's probably best to keep that spy's identity a secret. I think that's kind of the point of a spy. Anyways, the Biden administration does not know that. Surprise, surprise. So this weekend, I believe it was on Sunday, they posted a picture of Joe Biden meeting with all of our intelligence officials overseas. And I did have a tweet pulled up of this that they actually put up on the White House Twitter account. And the reason this was so bad is because in this picture, you can see the different people and their faces, and see exactly who they are. And so the Post-Millennial covered this morning, and this is what they wrote. Showed as part of a video conference on a screen are the faces of key officials from the Office of the Secretary of Defense and the Director of National Intelligence, the Vice President, as well as the Central Intelligence Agency and officials from Doha Station. So these are all really key players in U.S. intelligence. And again, it's just another bad look that the Biden administration is screwing up. So are you guys even surprised?
No, it seems like the level of incompetence, the level of disorganization we're seeing from the Biden administration is extraordinary. And already, we're still a year in, and already we have all of these huge narratives that are crashing down around Biden. You have the the crisis at the border. You have Afghanistan. You have inflation. How people were filling up plastic bags with gas not too long ago. All of these images that people can look at and say, "Oh, Biden screwed up. Biden screwed up," and now he's revealing some of our most secretive personnel we need to protect. He's revealing them on accident.
Yeah,
this administration has no idea what it's doing.
And the thing is, too, is it's not just those people who themselves decided, hey, I'm going to serve my country by being a part of the CIA or what have you. Those families are also implicated because you have these crazy terrorists who probably are going to end up in the U.S. at some point, just being able to see, like, oh, that's where they are and this is their location. I don't know if we clearly said that, but you could see their locations on the screen, which just blows my mind. So one thing that I wanted to bring up with this, and I did have pictures. I'm not sure if the graphics are going up. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So you see here this contrast to when Obama had found Osama bin Laden and his administration's reaction to that. Clearly, the room's full of people. And then here we see the leader of the free world, Joe Biden, sitting completely alone with all of his intelligence officials who should not be in the picture at all. And I think that just is a showcase of American power and what's headed. What do you think, Grant?
I think so, too. I think that image of Biden, even aside from the fact that he's revealing the locations of these people who need to be hidden, I mean, that's problem number one. Problem number two is he just looks weak, which he is. We know that he is a weak leader, that he's not doing a very good job, and that's just a picture of it to me is he's sitting there by himself in an empty room just staring at a screen. Like, that's not the image that we want to be putting out for other countries to see of us, and yet that's who Biden is, and that's accurate. That's an accurate depiction of him and his leadership so far, which is unfortunate that we have to say that, but that is pretty much a good summation of what he has been like so far as president.
Yeah, which is just, and that appearance of weakness, a lot of people have been talking about how, the Taliban was so motivated, they were so quick to take over the country that a lot of people are guessing that it's because of the weakness that Biden shows.
Yeah.
When you look at Trump, that's someone that's very fiery, very angry, very easily agitated. That's someone who you could picture retaliating pretty quickly to something. Biden is nothing. He's a doormat.
Nothing.
Yeah.
No, I even wrote this down. I'm like, instead of having Trump, who, whatever, he may have had some questionable tweets here or there, no one was going to mess with him. Instead, we have our old man president who can't keep two thoughts straight, who fantasizes about little children petting his hairy legs and whispers to the journalists at press conferences. And it's just not a good look all around. You can go back and forth all day with me on whether or not you think that's a good idea. And I have another picture that I think really demonstrates just how badly Biden has done on the world stage. So here you can see Trump sitting with Putin, and if you notice, right on that table with Putin are all of his flashcards to talk with Trump. And Trump walked in and said, hey, you know what? Remember when I wrote that book, The Art of the Deal? I don't need flashcards. And so that's how that meeting went. And then if you see just a few short years later, there's Joe Biden with the flashcards he probably even can't coherently read next to Putin sitting there nonchalantly being like, oh, I have to do this again. I remember this guy from 8 years ago, and he's just gone downhill ever since.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about those two pictures is like Putin's demeanor in both of them. Like one, he's like he's very much into the conversation. He's listening to what Donald Trump has to say, and he's kind of
pull that image
engaged.
back up as he describes this.
Yeah, he's very engaged. He's looking at Donald Trump. He's thinking, and then the other one, he's got his hands crossed. He's like just sitting back. He's like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to this guy. Like you could just see in his body language the respect that he has for Donald Trump, and then that he basically, from that picture, doesn't seem to have any respect for Biden, which honestly, I don't know why he would, given his handling of foreign policy so far.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So it's just been an absolute disaster. But I guess the one thing that we can take away is at least this time when we had an issue in the Middle East, we weren't selling pallets of cash to Iran this time. So I guess that's a little bit better, right?
Yeah, maybe if we had just given them a bunch of cash, then everything would be okay, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the Obama-Biden strategy?
Yeah, the Democratic Socialist free handouts. Hey, we did stimulus checks. Why can't we just give them stimulus checks in Afghanistan?
Yeah, well, I mean, they are talking about accepting like 30,000 Afghan citizens into the U.S., so maybe that's their own version of like, hey, we'll give you whatever you want.
I guess, I don't understand this strategy of like we're gonna keep making mistakes over and over again, and then we're just gonna cover it up by like spending a bunch of money or like letting a bunch of people in or just like doing things that are just clearly going to make it worse to try to cover up your tracks of a mistake that you already made. Like I don't understand how that's going to
And one thing, too, to point out, I don't have the thing in front of me where I saw this, but we were talking about it in the office today, talking about how as people are fleeing Afghanistan, they're getting COVID tested. So as they're running with literal terrorists running behind them, they're being like, wait, we got to test you first. So I don't know how we're going to accept those 30,000 people because, you know, you might be asymptomatic or have like the boogeyman behind you. Who knows?
Yeah, and, you know, certainly Fauci is not going to be happy about having to deal with that much more COVID coming into the country.
He's certainly not. We know that Anthony Fauci does not like COVID, which none of us do, but he has decided that his dislike for COVID is so much that he's going to use it to kind of strip us of our liberties, which basically we have known for a while now. But he's kind of saying the quiet part out loud, as you alluded to in the intro there. He has come out and said that he pretty much doesn't understand why anyone would be upset with him for saying you need to get this jab in your arm or you need to wear a mask to go eat at a restaurant. He's just saying, I don't understand how that's authoritarian. That's just, you know, that's just what you have to do. Like, you just have to listen to me. I know what I'm talking about. And so I don't understand why everyone is being so difficult to get along with. Why don't you just submit to me? And so he basically has come out and said this multiple times, the latest being yesterday on CBS, when he said that we need to put aside our personal liberties in order to reach his end goal of, I guess, ending the crisis, or that's what he would say his end goal is. I don't know if I believe him. But that's what he would claim. So here we have a video of him saying that.
We've got to do mitigation, put aside all of these issues of concern about liberties and personal liberties, and realize we have a common enemy, and that common enemy is the virus. And we really have to all pull together to get on top of this. Otherwise, we're going to continue to suffer as we're seeing right now.
Something that just really gets to me is when people they try to say that it's not politicized. It's not a political thing. It's just, you know, we all have a common enemy. We got to fight the virus. But you're out here saying things like we need to give up our personal liberties. Like, how can you say that sentence and then not think like, wow, this is politically motivated?
Yeah, we need to unite together, but also you can't eat here if you're not vaccinated. Also, you can't do this. Also, you can't do that. But yes, united front, right, guys?
Yeah, no, well, they don't. I mean, they don't see politics as political. They see politics as moral. So if you're not agreeing with my politics and I'm a leftist, it's not because you have a different political opinion. It's because you're immoral and you're irresponsible.
Yeah. That's a thing that I know you talked about Ben Shapiro earlier. That's a thing he talks about all the time, which is it used to be we disagree with each other in politics, but we have the same basic principles. You know, we like the Constitution, we like America. Now it's like, if you don't agree with what the left says, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's whatever topic of the day we're talking about, then you are just morally reprehensible. You shouldn't be able to have a Twitter. You shouldn't be able to have a job. You shouldn't be able to fraternize with people if you don't agree with what they agree with. It's a very dangerous brand of politics that they're playing.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things too, and I don't know who quoted this, but it's this idea that once you demonize someone as evil, once you demonize the right as evil, everything becomes permissible when you're fighting against evil. And so that's what the war ultimately has been. And even last week when you were watching, we covered, Antifa knocking down a Christian service, like putting that to an end. And there's just all of these examples time and time again where these people are saying, oh, I have the moral high ground, but also it's great to steal from large corporations because large corporations are bad. But I also maintain the moral high ground still because I'm aware that the corporations are bad. And so people just aren't morally consistent anymore. No one actually thinks about what their values truly are. I think the whims of social media have just truly taken over society, especially with even outrage culture.
And I think, what Fauci's saying here, he's revealing what the agenda about COVID has really been all about. The left believes that if you exercise your individual liberties, you're a danger to the community, that our communal, liberties should be more important than than your individual ones, which is exactly the opposite of being true. And what COVID has been all about, what Fauci and the other, establishment, public health experts and all these people, all they want is to have complete control over everything you do because they believe they can run your lives better than you can. They believe they can make decisions for you. They believe they can make decisions for millions of people better than they can. So essentially, they want the government to become God, and they want to use that God to rule over everybody.
I would agree with you. And thus far, I think that we've seen a large percentage of the population kind of go along with that, kind of say, okay, well, I guess you do know better than I do. You can just make decisions for me because, you're a public health expert or because you have this title, then I'm just going to trust you. Do you think that we're going to see that start to change as we hear Fauci say things like you need to give up your personal liberties? Like, are these comments going to wake anyone up to the idea of maybe I shouldn't just be blindly following what these public health officials are saying?
I don't know that I'd say these comments in particular. And, I think, funny enough, Arnold Schwarzenegger said like the same thing.
Yeah, he did.
Like a week ago?
Yeah.
He said, screw your freedoms or something like that, talking about COVID. But I don't think anybody's reaction to those comments is really going to change minds. What's going to change minds and what I believe has been changing minds for independents and for people on the left has been looking at the real world, boots on the ground consequences of losing individual liberties. When you have vaccine mandates in New York City, and because African Americans don't trust the vaccine as much, you're essentially putting in, Jim Crow laws. You're putting in racial segregation into law in New York City because only like 20% or something like that of the African American population in New York City is fully vaxxed. So right there, all of those people won't be able to go out to businesses and stuff. It's just going to be all white people and Asians. So it's when people see those real life consequences, when they see businesses shutting down, when across the street there's movie studios that are allowed to operate 100%. When they see all these contradictions, when they see all these consequences, that's what changes their minds. When Fauci says something about liberty, unfortunately, I don't think the word liberty means much to anybody.
Yeah, it kind of falls on deaf ears these days
nowadays,
a little bit.
So,
and I think too, one of the things that we need to be paying attention to is obviously it's really, really great to be aware of what's going on in your own country, but we need to be paying attention to what's going on abroad because if you look at France, protests everywhere. If you look at Australia, protests everywhere. People are seeing what's happening. They're freaking out, and it's just slowly bleeding over here. And I think it would be naive to say, "Oh, that's Australia, that's France," because France, their entire thing is liberté, égalité, fraternité, whatever. And I can.
That was beautiful.
I'm not. My French is really great. But it's like when you have like similar values and helped us win the revolution, and now you're going to get fined 1,300 euros just for going out and having a sandwich outside. It's absolutely draconian and something that we probably would have seen out of a movie 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. America's far from the republic that it should be in terms of individual freedoms. But when you look at places like Australia, when you look at places like France and how they're reacting, it's actually nice to see that we're not the worst in the world when it comes to taking away people's freedoms. It's been happening here too much, but because of the checks and balances we have in place, because of how our system is set up, we have been protected overall from like a totalitarian regime coming into place, even though that's definitely where it seems like we're headed, especially with Fauci saying things like this.
It does seem like we're headed there. One of our favorite games that we like to play here on WJ Live is called Dumb or Dishonest. It's a game that was coined by our esteemed editor-in-chief, George Upper.
Yeah.
He's not in the show today. He's in a meeting, so he's probably not watching. But
Just
maybe
had his 95th birthday, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's older than everyone else in the office combined, which is pretty crazy stat. But hopefully he'll be able to go back and watch this because this is his favorite game. But
I hope not after I just said that.
yeah.
okay, maybe we'll tell him not
Maybe
to.
just
On second
insulted
thought.
him on air. So
Yeah.
But on this version of Dumb or Dishonest, I think what I'm basically getting at is how much slack, I guess, are we going to cut public health officials? It's not exactly worded that way, but what I want to ask you guys is, do you think that Anthony Fauci is dumb enough to believe that you should take away personal freedoms in order to solve a crisis like this? Like, does he actually morally think that is the right solution? We need to take away personal freedoms in order to solve this, or is he being dishonest and saying that because his real goal is to gain power and to kind of put in a totalitarian kind of regime like you were just talking about?
Before you answer, Tara, you can't say both.
okay.
You have to choose one.
Okay. I will say dishonest because I think that what Anthony Fauci does is when he goes home is he's become an idol to himself. So he goes home to his mirror and says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is fairest of them all?" And it goes, "You are Anthony Fauci," and it's actually Rachel Maddow and then some other people on CNN saying, "Yeah, that's you."
Just talking to his TV. And CNN's
yeah. So I think it's a power trip. I think it ultimately always will be a power trip. They're clinging onto the coattails of COVID-19, and so I just think it's dishonest at this point because if you look at the data, they're saying, yes, the data doubled, but it's not really. Like when you go from 1 to 2 people per day, it's like, yeah, the data doubled, but there aren't these hospitalizations that we saw last March. So that's my 2 cents.
I love playing this game, and I love saying dumb. And that's my answer for this one, dumb, because ideologically, I believe this is exactly what Fauci believes, that, the government needs to control everything. And that whenever there's a big tragedy, whenever there's a big event, it's the government's job to get in there and to save everyone and to protect everyone and to take people's freedoms away, give them back, do whatever it takes to keep everyone 100% safe. And I think he believes that works and that's a good philosophy because he's really, really dumb. You see this. This is the left-wing philosophy. There are so many of them that genuinely believe it. That's why I say dumb all the time. Whether it's with public health, whether it's with economics. These people don't understand economics. They feel like they can make all the pricing decisions for people, even though the economy is so complex and there's billions of interactions and different things that have consequences that this A affects Z through all these other things. They still think that they can control it and micromanage it, and they can't. And that's the same is true for all of these situations. Is that you need to leave it up to local communities. You need to leave it up to states. You need to leave it up to individuals to keep themselves safe. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would tend to lean towards dumb myself as well. There are certainly dishonest things that Anthony Fauci has done
you really
and public health
can't
officials
go
have
wrong
done. Right.
in dumb or dishonest.
You can't go wrong. They're both probably true
Two
most
great
of the time.
options.
But the reason I would say I lean towards dumb is kind of what you were just saying. I feel like people, a majority of people, I won't say all people who are Democrats or vote Democrat, but leftists, people who are on the left and they're radical leftists, I think that they actually feel like the government coming in and telling you what to do and solving all your problems is the way to go.
Yes.
And I think that that's why you hear Anthony Fauci saying things like we need to give up your personal liberties, because he actually thinks that when a crisis happens, the best way to fix it is just to give up all your personal liberties and just let the government do it, which is just so far from the truth.
He actually thinks that the government can do something right,
Yes.
and that there aren't all these bureaucratic just nightmares going on where like all this red tape and all these convoluted processes aren't bogging everything down, which is why the government doesn't work.
Right.
It
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Yeah.
But he doesn't get that.
Well, and just to have like a complete hot take with Tara, I think it's a lot easier to like completely bend someone to your will when you're not like focused. I mean, obviously we're a Christian company, so I'm just going to say it. When you're not focused on like a biblical value and you don't have like this higher power that you're looking towards, when the closest thing you have to a higher power is the government, that's when you become really susceptible, because if you think that this is all there is and this is all your life is, it's a lot easier to become really terrified of a virus with a 99.7% survival rate.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And, that was your first ever taste of hot takes with Tara.
I think that's going to be a new segment. I like that.
I think it is going to be a new segment. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of WJ Live. If you really want to help us out, make sure you go to westernjournal.com/join. You can subscribe to the Western Journal here. That helps us out so much. Big tech is trying to censor us. They're trying to keep us from, making money off of ads, off of our stories. It makes things tough. It makes business tough at times. And when you subscribe, when you go to westernjournal.com/join, you can help us fight against that. Another thing you can do is go to YouTube, www.youtube.com/WJLive. Go there, hit the bell to get notifications, subscribe to that channel so you can get every episode as it comes out brand new. Am I missing anything? We're also on audio podcasts. You can go to Apple Podcasts. You can go to Spotify, anywhere you get your audio podcasts.
I feel like people don't know about that one, so that's a good one to highlight.
Yeah, make sure you, if you're just driving to work or something, you can listen to us on the way. You can hear Tara's hot takes.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that's about everything. So, from me, from Grant, from Tara, thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of WJ Live.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no. You and Joe. You
The
should
Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Got me to go to the studio.
Oh.
No!